Can you imagine travelling by high-speed electric monorail from the heart of Manchester to the heart of Liverpool in 18 or 20 minutes? Impossible, right? The cost of building such a line would be astronomical. But this is not some new multi-million pound scheme to stoke the egos of the Manchester and Liverpool Metro mayors. This is, or rather was, a genuine plan to link the two cities. It's not, as you might think, a recent plan. It actually dates back to 1901, over 120 years ago. The line was the brainchild of Fritz Baer, who was busy trying to promote the advantages of high-speed monorail passenger services in various countries. It's promised high speeds linking up various major cities. All sounds good, but it wouldn't have been without controversy, not only causing major upheaval to all those in its path, but in the case of the Manchester-Liverpool, it would, for example, have required the digging up of bodies from some graveyards. More on that later. In May 1899, a joint committee of major stakeholders in both cities was formed, and it reported that the total cost of the line would be 1.4 million. Soon after, the Manchester and Liverpool Electric Railway Syndicate Limited was formed to construct a line. By 1901, the railway was approved by an Act of Parliament. The route. As this map shows, for most of its length, it would have closely mirrored that of the Cheshire Lines Committee route from Liverpool as far as Earlham. Then it would have gone close by the Manchester Ship Canal and into central Manchester. The Liverpool terminus being closely adjoining Church Street, with its 700 yards of Liverpool Exchange and the Town Hall. At Manchester, the terminus would be on the west side of Deansgate, about 400 yards from Manchester Town Hall. Interchange to other conventional lines at both Manchester and Liverpool wouldn't have been great. But then again, interchange wasn't really improved until the advent of the Merseyrail Underground of the 1970s and the Manchester Metrolink of the 1990s. The line was only going to have 2 terminal stations with no intermediate stops. The services were to be purely express passenger with no freight whatsoever. The promoters seeing this as an advantage over the existing routes. The 2 terminal stations were to be of very similar design. This is the one proposed for Manchester, and this is the Liverpool station. Both were to be approximately 60 feet tall, with stairs and passenger lifts, the length being about 210 feet with a width of 65 feet. This cross-section of the Liverpool station shows the internal layout. The platform level plan showing the arrangement of the lifts, offices and turntable. As to the actual line's method of construction, well, the Baer monorail system is certainly an oddity. You could say that with its single top rail and 2 side guide rails, it's anything but a monorail. Add to that is the conductor rails each side, making a total of 7 rails altogether. This was first developed as a means of carrying a railway over rough sandy terrain. This track trestle design is shown here on the plans. The twin tracks running side by side the length of the route. Switching between lines would have been carried out at the terminal stations using the turntables. An experimental line had been constructed in Brussels in 1897 and ran at speeds up to 85 miles an hour. The promoters were confident that 110 miles an hour could be achieved on a much straighter line from Manchester to Liverpool. The passenger vehicles are definitely something that you won't find on a standard railway. Indeed, they were not conventional trains as we know them, but would be just single cars. This is a model of one of the proposed wedge-shaped cars. These would have travelled back and forth at 10-minute intervals at 110 miles an hour. The length of these cars was to be 41 feet long and carry a maximum of 72 passengers. To maintain balance over the central monorail, the passenger compartments are split into 2 each side. Too many people on one side would affect the balance, so passenger loading would have required stewards to ensure the weight was split equally. The traction equipment would partly encroach into the seating area, though obviously sealed behind bulkheads. These cross-section diagrams demonstrate this more clearly. The promoter's selling point of a rapid and quiet ride is questionable. Rapid, yes, but quiet seems like stretching it. Braking for the trains will be by a combination of Westinghouse brakes and gradients at 1:30 at Manchester and 1:25 at Liverpool. The steep grades will both assist acceleration away from the terminals and retard them on the approach to the terminals. Current collection was via the two conductor rails. The power for the line provided by a power station to be located at Warrington. Signalling would have been a largely automatic block system. This is a simplified diagram of the signalling system. As this advert for investors shows, the projected cost of building the line back in 1903 had risen to 2.1 million. All that was needed was those willing to invest. The parliamentary bill to construct the line had been passed in 1901 after an in-depth inquiry. As the grandly titled Manchester and Liverpool Electric Express Railway, the large 136-page document containing all the usual legal gobbledygook, protection for the interests of the other railway companies was written into this Act, one of which was for the Liverpool Overhead Railway. The monorail company was required to open up a section of Dingle Tunnel and build a bridge over the line. For those unaware, one terminus of the Liverpool Overhead Railway was actually underground. Also underground were some of the dearly departed, resting in the cemeteries of St. Peter and at St. Michael's churches in Liverpool. As the line was to pass through the sections of these churchyards, they were to be dug up and reinterred elsewhere. Not very respectful. Some measure of respect was to be given to what the Act described as the displacing of persons of labouring class, or poor people to you and me. The company was required to help rehome in dwellings fit for occupation those that might have been displaced from their homes. Plenty of compensation was to be offered, though, to all the various lords and earls whose land the line might have encroached upon. So, here we are in the 21st century, and what's happened? There's still no high-speed monorail between Manchester and Liverpool. Indeed, monorails of any kind are still few and far between. What went wrong? On paper, they seem like a good idea, cutting journey times considerably, but the practicality of their construction and operation being serious drawbacks. The separation of other traffic being road, rail or pedestrians being one. Level crossings, for instance, being totally impossible with a monorail. Some kind of drawbridge being the only way to achieve this. And with a frequent 10-minute service, it would soon become an annoyance. Having to balance the weight of the cars is a potential issue, especially if groups wanted to travel together. Switching from one track to another, something easily done on a conventional railway, is much more complex with a monorail. But the main problem that frightened investors was that the government insisted on a short section of the line to be built to prove the concept and safety of the system. This all would have been at the company's expense, with no guarantee that the line would be completed. So, if we imagine that somehow the line had been built, would it still be here today? My guess is unlikely. The other companies wouldn't have stood by and watched passenger revenue be taken away. The fact is that conventional railways can now easily reach 110 miles an hour or faster. Competition would have spurred on that development much faster, killing the monorail with its better connections, simplified maintenance and ease of operation. If you enjoyed this video, please consider sharing it, giving us a like and subscribing. It's all free. If you would like to support the channel, you can by giving us a super thanks. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to check out the other railway history videos on this channel. See the link in the description.